Okay, so let's just break this down for a second. Do a slight overview before we get into it. But okay, I've got things listed here. Okay, I'll get into how I figure out. I go back through the journal. I go back through these sections. I fill these in usually at the end of the month because I review the week. I get some to have some perspective on it and sum it up here. Then I take the combined story there and get the story arc for the month. And that's what I know, that's how I get, while you're in it, things are popping to mind and everything, but you catch even more. You're working with your mind, yes, when you go back and you review, and then your mind can connect dots that it hadn't already connected, right? And then you're like, oh, wait, yes, okay, right? And something new pops in. It doesn't pop in unless you go back and review, same as it doesn't pop in unless we're doing all this work in the first place. So I turn all the pages around, and that's why it's really nice not to bind the book until the end, yes? Because you can work backwards and forwards that much more non-linearly, yes? I just said work backwards and forwards, not... Okay, anyway, you know what I'm saying. Work all over the place. The other thing I do to figure out what's going on here is I review what happened as events connected to the planet cycles, yes? So for house number 2, obviously Venus, even though I don't have Venus... I have Venus in Taurus. Yes, I do have a Taurus Venus. My second house is empty. Right, but then it's aspected so heavily, especially in the effects of that emptiness. But of course, study the Venus cycles. I've modified because of this. I went back in and I took more time with Venus in terms of this. It takes Venus about 7 months ish to orbit the sun, but Venus does erratic movements as well. So because it's tracing that 5-petaled flower around us, its orbit with us, yes? So it's got 5 loops that it takes 8 years to complete, okay? So because it's doing that dance as well, that's why when it spins out ahead, and it's been in Sagittarius all the time that everybody else was in Libra and Scorpius, yeah? And it's doing that thing. So then there are multiple cycles involved, and I added a cycle because I realized, what would it mean every 7 months? How do you add up and compare what's going on in your life every 7 months? And how does that add up in years? And what years coincide with, let's say, because I believe I gave it an 8-year cycle, because it takes 8 years for Venus to complete that flower, right? And then you kind of have cycles of 5 as well. Now, I didn't go as heavy into the 5s, but there's that change that Venus brings in, yes? The sun is the only other influence that hits us in 5s, I believe. But it makes sense bringing in that change of what you need, yes? Because Venus is all about what you need. What you like, but also what you need. And pushing, okay? So I was like, then I realized, okay, when I did the math for the 7 months, I realized I was arriving at that 7 was mattering. And of course, if we go to the significance of 7 and how many of the Masonic organizations rely on 7, and we're talking gods and nations, we're talking, that's the rabbit hole that would go down with Nathan Howard with Natural Tahuti, and that's what landed him in prison on false murder and drug charges. Well, the drug charges got him into jail, and then they pinned a murder charge on him inside the jail, inside prison, just to keep him in there, right? Because don't speak the truth. And he did that work, his last presentation, he does that. Okay, so 7 matters. So then there's what happens between ages 7 and 8. So we start to deal with an age range, okay, where Venus is working through in a period of years. So I went back and I modified, and I've got that listed here. So, but also the other planets I looked at, I looked at my Uranus because it's, Why did I look at, it's aspecting my sun, but it's also aspecting something else, and I'm trying to remember at this point what. Because it's been a while since I decided that I'd get more into it in my 10th house, but definitely back, just checking with the North Node, Jupiter, and therefore if, oh, I've got South Node there. So because they're next to my Mercury, what do I have there? Oh, that's not even Uranus. That's because I'm blind, okay? I need glasses. You're like, what are you talking about, Uranus? Chiron. Okay, my Chiron, because Chiron is my card for the Hierophant. Sorry. The Hierophant is my card for Chiron, okay? So I got into that because the Hierophant is the card for the second house, right? But I needed cards for planets and and objects, yes. So I thought, well, Chiron is the wounded healer, is the teacher, yes. He also did not good things to his daughter in return, in thanks for her prophecy that he would be wounded and made mortal. He traded in his immortality because of the wound. I think it was but he didn't thank her for the way he thanked her for that prophecy, which was giving him the chance to do something about it ahead of time, right? But he took her powers of speech from her. So basically he's an asshole, which we don't want to be. But it's important to know what the psychological undercurrents are that, you know, they're setting us up for. Because they're attaching us to energies. When they attach us to a concept, yes, they attach us to an energy. So we want to make sure that we totally understand the concept and know what we're saying yes to before we get attached to it, obviously, right? Therefore, you know, you reshape things. Because my Jupiter's so close by, but because Jupiter rules Sagittarius and my second house is in Sagittarius, and that explains the Uranus. Because my second house runs through Capricornus and Aquarius as well. Okay. Then you can, as you can see, I've done the nakshatras. This took a long time, but it's done. It's done. And this is what I knew needed to be done at some point. I didn't know how much more information and how accurate, but the nakshatras absolutely. Why would I be surprised? There are things about characteristics that they've recorded that you will not get from the Western abbreviations of astrology through the 12 signs, okay? That might seem really obvious to say. But again, if we go back to Rohini, even Kritika and Mrigashira in Taurus, yes, those three nakshatra, Rohini being the central one, and Mrigashira is the female snake, Rohini is the male snake, okay? But they have events, life events, that really, yes, there's so much to me that I understand that I would not understand at all to be astrological, if not for the nakshatras, the lunar mansions. So absolutely this chart needs to become a permanent fixture. I want to add the Australian, at least one Australian Aboriginal system to this as well, and could easily add the Chinese. There's no reason why not to, because it's not like it's that difficult to understand in that form, okay? But I'll get to that in a moment. So when we get down, so I get the main takeaway. What we're looking at in second house is your relationship with religion, is your relationship with home, with different kinds of homes. Now, because my second is primarily in Sagittarius in the whole house system, it means my sense of home I can find anywhere out in the world. I have so many homes. I make myself at home. If I can't make myself feel at home in an environment within the first few tries, right, then I know something's very wrong. So my sense of home isn't I do have a sense of wanting my own home to be warm and welcoming, but I feel like I can replicate that and embrace it anywhere in the world. Potentially, yes. If someone's welcoming, then I can make myself right at home with them. And so there is the difficulty of feeling disconnected from my own home base simply because of that energy, that Sagittarius energy of the second house being there. It means also that I have a tremendous amount of data in me from having so many homes. Okay, and I needed to do the root work because of Mula being the first nakshatra of Sagittarius. Is it the first nakshatra? I'll get to that. Okay, but it's the first nakshatra of my second house. Yeah, I think there's actually a pretty even split. Jesta in Scorpius, yes. And then we move through, yeah, okay. So, but again, and then even if you take that through the Sagittarius and the Capricornus and the Aquarius, my second house is all about lots and lots of people and being out in the world. And therefore my security is with a lot of people, but that means financial security as well. A lot of contracts and being very mobile and so that's totally true on the micro scale with my Kristen's Home Cleaning, where I'm all over the city. But that is coming to an end. They have been shutting that down. I lost the government subsidy because I don't even think I used up a third of what I could have claimed because I stayed working. Yeah, you had to do that rotten thing of being dependent on the system, you know, and at the same time, and not really being interested in going and cleaning strangers' toilets. In the insanity of, no, I can't go anywhere without being vaccinated, except to go clean strangers' toilets. Sure, absolutely. No, as somebody who is in healthcare as a cleaner, like a serious cleaner, like I don't just do it as work. I'm the one that I'm on my knees doing floors. Anyway, I have a tremendous amount of pride, and a lot of my personality is in that. So it's not just a thing that I do. It is very specific to my trajectory. It is I will carry on with Kristen's Home Cleaning as an online thing, I'm not going to just drop that identity ever. It's part of me. I love good cleaners and what they bring to the world philosophically and all that stuff. But what they've done, what God has done, they're getting me to go, and I knew it was coming. I knew it was coming, where you have to make the leap again, but I'm not leaping so much as walking steadily into intentionally. So yes, the money is disappearing. I had a huge problem situation, but it was always engineered to be a problem because I'm Scorpius, so I come into people's lives bringing the death experience, yes. And so my main client is moving into a larger facility that's too big for me. And so I've got a few months to really just make sure, we're going to pull off some really amazing shit, apparently. Because it's not about just going and paying the bills the Matrix way. We have to prove at some point what God is really trying to achieve with us and what God's really worth. God gets us to put our money where God's mouth is. And so that's what earth energy is all about, and the readings are especially like Minnow Pond, who's such excellent Capricorn energy, but even Austin's Tarot, like whoever you watch, they're coming through with, if they're worth anything, they're coming through with very strong readings about actually pushing into this energy rather than, if you're strong enough. It takes a tremendous amount of strength and bravery to do this, but the alternative is way scarier, because then you stay stuck in the net, you stay stuck freaking out, being made to freak out, because what we're doing is we're creating the true spiritual security, and the deep magic, which is going to shift and help us if we can get back out through that portal, yes, and get out of this little universe that they've got us tucked away in this Taurus donut hole, right? So that's what I love about finding out about the science of the stuff, is because it helps you get clear in your mind and your psychic connections and your spiritual decisions about what to focus on, right? And how this is all going to work out. So it increases the faith when you need somebody else to increase your faith. Is there anything else I'm missing? So yes, second house, house of paired with, we start to look at the houses across the board. So 2nd and 8, 1st and 7th, working together always, yes? So 2nd and 8, so Taurus and Scorpius, all about digging, archaeology, burying, everything in the ground, up through the ground, down into the ground, yes? And then metaphorically. Because of course if we flip from northern to southern, yes, then the seasons are changed, so it's one or the other, but they are complementary to each other, right? The protests I've been following, I've got screenshots of all the protests from around the world over, you know, the fascist one world regime that's quickly closing in on us. So I look to them for the strength. Let's see. Yes, Aragon. I've found out that we get into what's specific. Another thing that comes, the gaps, using 2 house systems, using a whole house system and then whichever uneven house system, and looking for overlaps and gaps between those 2 house systems. You're going to find out pivotal information about yourself. It has turned out to be incredibly true for me, and I've got the proof of that. So really, I'm looking at all the different kinds of homes I had, keeping track of them, doing the root work and the healing of getting clear on everything that you have for that. Now, if you have a second house somewhere, if your second house is somewhere else, let's say in the cardinal or fixed energy, right? Then it might be calmer. There might be less to worry about. It's hard to say. I have a feeling like second house is just a behemoth house to deal with, because it's everything. Once you land on Earth, it's everything that you're set with. It's everything that you're grounded into. Once you come out of that pure Aries energy that's so easy with the fool with the pack on his back, right? That's the Aries thing. You are this burst coming of this soul coming into Earth, and then boom. Second house is like the manifestation of you and what that means, what that brings with it. So all my different kinds of houses, the concert hall that I grew up in because my mom was a classical singer, the hospitals I grew up in because she was dying for like seven years, over 7 years, yes. My schools, what you've learned. So that apprenticeship in the Hierophant card is three hats, right? Of his, you know, and then your idea of authority. Who is your authority? Do you have any earthly authority? What's your attitude towards it? But your teachers, who you are as a teacher, who you are as an apprentice, who you are as a master, where you're going. So really there's stuff about here. This is almost more about your workplace than Virgo is. Except they both are. All 3 are about your workplace. But it's more about the difference. All 3 earth houses are about work. And it's more about your experience of time and place. It's the emphasis on the earth houses is more on the time-space relationship. So in Virgo, it's all about being the Time Lord and being time-space sensitive with your actions and which actions. And Taurus, we're talking about making up for lost time that people take from you or that your chart took from you. Because when you're born with a chart, but you don't know it necessarily. Most of us don't know it, right? And that's the first injustice, and it's massive. It's like that's the first sin against us to bring us here. but also not to give us our chart. Okay. Am I still? Yep. Okay. Final phase, I think. So I realize I haven't answered yet who is helping me in this house, but that's because the answer is so much more complex than I can even... it's complex, and yet I've already covered all that ground, it turns out, right? I'm just going to put these to the side. And of course it helps to review all the other pages, yes? Because, but then even other houses. So, things pop up. Primarily when I'm looking at who's specific to this house, it's when I get into, so I'll just backtrack through these then. So like, let's say in the first week, hand to the plow, the bull, but being pulled backwards, progress, out muscle whoever's pulling me back, right? So yes, I find that this is where you're going to have a lot of interference in your life, right? A lot of attacks. Second week, feeling the 8 swords, right? This was all about that 8 of swords story for me, and it did come to conclusion. So the final reading for the month was a Jennifer Soul Source Tarot where the 8 swords were reversed. So we went from charting back in May when the 8 of swords did that amazing trick in a Taurus reading for me. I think it was May, to this, and it's all about the Houdini maneuver. It's all about doing the difficult information work. Yes, because it's swords, it's Aquarius for me, 11th house. And you watch yourself be released from situations, and it's exactly what happened. So I'm tracking that through readings, and then because of course they're making me aware of the fact through readings. Yes, they're helping me track it because they know I'm going to write it down as well. Third week. So I find what was interesting is I found myself sinking and resurfacing, sinking and resurfacing, sinking and resurfacing. And I was like, well, why am I having a water experience in an earth house? And then that reminded, I already had the answer to that. Over here, if we go back to this, when we're in the constellation, the sign information, if we go back to the real story behind Murugan's 6 faces, right? So we're talking about the Pleiades and the Ganges, Mother Ganges, okay, Ganja. She carried, because there were 6 babies born, yes? And they're each looked after by the 6 mothers. And then they're the 6 aspects of the one, right? We're talking about, because Lord Shiva was asked to produce an avenger, okay? And he created Murugan, who's also Kartikeya. And so Kartikeya, you've got the star near the Kritika nakshatra, the first nakshatra that spans between Aries and Taurus. And you have, these are all star stories, yes, but Mother Ganga carried these divine rays to the lake Saravana, where lotus flowers sprang from the mud, and thus the lake represents the element of earth. So I'm having that experience because of the Pleiades experience, because of the Mother Ganga experience, the 6 mothers, where, so it tells me right there, the lake takes on, represents the element of earth. So because it's creating the earth, okay? So this is why, now it takes me into childhood memories. I have actually gone, and they sent me in the end to go back into a message conversation, a DM conversation between me and one of my cousins, going back 5.5 years ago, where we've been trying to patch things up off and on through the years. I left the family about 5.5 years ago and thought maybe she knew it. And I thought that they were sending her after me And I was wrong to, but it was at a very stressful point. I had going through my Saturn cycle and completing, breaking things off with my dad because there was no easy way to help everybody grow. We weren't doing it the easy way. So I had to force it, and I had to force my escape basically from being his support in his home and into having my own home. And I'm still clinging on to that through this work, well, through everything. But and I felt like they were sending her after me at the time, but I was wrong to just assume that and not push to find out. And so I was very triggered in my answers to her, and I went back. They had me go back in all of this because of the root work, and I reread, and she had come to me because she had been given a dream about me and my mother. And so I didn't at the time honor the fact that she'd had a dream. I doubted it, and now I know because they sent me back, and I reread it, and I was like, shit. So then I sent her an apology, and I said, here's where I've come to understand, and I overlooked the dream, and I didn't, I thought other things, and I'm sorry. What had happened was, because of all the violence in our family and all the anger issues, strong wizard witch energy in our family that all got turned towards Salvation Army. So half the family is like strict religious, and the other half are alcoholics, basically, right? And at war with each other. So missionaries, lots of missionaries, lots of, it's when your spiritual magic self gets, distorted. Not that Jesus isn't all about correcting that completely. So I gotta credit Jesus for being the one, whether he's a construct or he's real, it's Jesus' words that started getting me out of everything. Because that's what I come from. It's not because it's what I come from. There's no guarantee that what I came from had anything in it that would work to help, But she's 6 years older than me. And she would be left, my grandmother, born in London, who I love, and had dementia, but also had been severely abused. I was the youngest. I had 3 cousins. I still have 3 cousins, and she'd compare them to me. She'd say, why don't you be more like Kristen? Well, it's easier to be, you're going to be calmer if you're an only child than which is what I am, when there are 3 of them, and 1 girl and 2 boys, right? And the girl is the oldest. So she did that to them, and then they would take it out on me, right? But they also had a lot of anger. It's our dads that are brothers, okay? And she'd hold me underwater at the pool. So I had this drowning experience, okay? And it turns out that it's like a very shamanic experience for both of us if we go back and we handle it the right way. And so this water experience, this sinking and resurfacing, it all took me back to dealing with that again. And then San Tarot did a reading for Scorpio saying near-death experience, and it was all about a drowning experience, even just metaphorically, right? And so I knew that they were calling me into, so it does have everything to do with this earth energy, and of course we've got Scorpius across the thing from it. So whatever is in your house, in your second, that has anything to do with that, I'm not trying to be specific to me so that I distract you from your own. I'm trying to pull you more and more and more, hopefully, into your own progress with this, as always, right? So that's what I noticed. Sink or swim on my own, works both ways. Damn, devil card, good and bad, chains cut together. Right, so chains were being cut because of that Age of Swords. So that means if the chains that are binding you to the bad get cut, the chains that bind you to the good get cut with them, which gives you more and more free reign, yes? So you're more and more self-possessing. So free to swim, okay? But the swimming is a lot of work, so much, right? They killed Malcolm X's daughter, Malika, okay? Right at the same time, there's root work that my dad had been doing with a chair that we had had in the family for years. I'll get to that. He was sanding it down. He felt compelled to sand it down to the base wood, and he spent months on it, okay? The day after I photographed it, I photographed it November 11th. No, I photographed it November 21st. On November 11th, I was led to an article about Malcolm X because of my work on my other book. And and they led me to a photo of the Audubon Theater where he was murdered. And there's a chair on its back on the stage, and it's exactly the chair that my dad had been sanding. Exactly the same kind of chair, right? And so I got the photo of that. I showed it to Dad. On the 21st, I photographed his chair. On the 22nd, they murdered Malika, which was 4 days after they exonerated two of the guys they'd been charging his murder with. Nation of Islam there's again, Shabazz Productions on YouTube. If you go to, I think, Soul Power Info Center, they do these amazing documentaries, proving that H.L. Hunt, Texas soil tycoon, was funding Nation of Islam, same as he was funding KKK. But Nation of Islam goes back to a couple of orders that are Masonic. So it's all... The article that I found that had the photo of the chair, the guy did the tremendous work of connecting all of that. There's a Channel 7 that reports on Malika's death, and the 7 uses the same symbol of the 7 as Nathan Howard. Nathan Howard pointed. So I'm finding out that I'm answering so much to this, exactly basically where North Node is in Virgo for that. It's actually, well, no, it's my Pluto. I did the math. It's actually my Pluto that's hitting. The North Node is more where the galaxy clusters are, at the tip of Virgo. Parima, the prophetess star, the Aerophile star, the Aragon. Well, Aragon is all of Virgo, but that's where my Pluto is. So, but I added these parts to the nakshatras because there's this gap between my 2 second houses, and of course there's a gap between my 2 8 houses. So these 2 gaps need to be reconciled, right? We've already gone through this in the last video, but I went and did the whole chart, right? And I went and I figured out all my planet positions, all my planet placements by nakshatras. I got all the information. Vidya Mitra, I'll show you. But then figuring out how all these I have empty houses, yes, 5th and 11th, in the uneven, in the Regiomontanus, Ibn Ezra system, yeah, both second. My one empty 3rd house, although rather full in the other system, yes, okay. And then empty Leo, which corresponds to the empty 5th in the Ibn Ezra Regiomontanus, okay? So figuring out what to get from all of that, okay? And it's been heavy duty, and there hasn't been another way to do it. I can't put it off till later. It has to be done now. There is no later. When it comes to you, it comes to you. It needs to be done. And everybody around me needs to learn. Primarily my dad. No, I have clients. I have clients that need to know. And I need to know how to... I have to reach the place where I can be stricter with the scheduling, yes? They'll have me sit with them for an hour just talking. Because of what I know, right? And with no payment for that, okay? So it's not viable because it's just not, well, it's how I socialize, but it's not securing my home. It's not, like I'm risking everything because I haven't earned enough. They all undercut me. I love them, but they know exactly what they're doing. And it's all being pulled down. The tower is being pulled down because it's going to be rebuilt. Yes. But again, the certainty that I have is because of how certain and grounded I am in all of this work. You don't need to worry about your faith so much when you actually stay on the path of doing the legwork. I know what I'm building. So what are you building? Like, the more you build, the more you stay with your build. And frankly, yeah, no, we all have something to build. I'm not saying I'm not a missions person. I'm a creative person. The whole point is to get away from mission into creative. Yes, that is the mission, so to speak. Because it's way more alive and fun than mission. Mission imposes. Mission, it has a fixed answer. Not that this doesn't have a fixed answer, but the whole point of engaging with this is to create more opportunities for the unexpected, yes? So I broke it down on either side here, what my issues are. I'll spare you that. Okay, this is the ground that we covered last time in the last video, but then I knew that I needed to go in and deal with this Punarvasu situation because it's directly where this other gap is. And sure enough, the symbol for Punarvasu down in Cancer is actually a house, and I think I have it here, where this was what happened to me. This was what my dad gave me right after my mom died, was this dollhouse kit. And I've had a deep conversation with my dad about this ever since, and it's helping him because he's wanting to make a major move from one house to another house. He's actually considering building a house, and he's 76, coming up for 77. And so the timing of resolving this for him as well as for me, absolutely. There are other issues attached to Punarvasu that completely speak to me about what the path is that I've been on and what the obstacles have been and what needed to be reconciled. So because those are specific to me and because I've been talking so much and there's still more to get through, then I won't get into the details of that. But when I was building this, so my emphasis, Ali's tarot, she did a read. Can you, even just alone, the color coordination here. I did all of this before she did this video. This is the video where we get into that, the car going off the edge, right? But Ali did this reading about the gap, November 8th to 14th for Scorpio. Okay, that's this year. Right while I'm working on it. Okay, so to get this affirmation, you need the gap. So, and I'm looking at the overlap. This gap created by using two house systems. If you only use one house system, and you use tropical or sidereal, but not both, and then you don't add the nakshatra, and then whatever other information from other systems, yes, then you don't know. They know that. They give you such a jammed up system to start with. If you even catch on to astrology, they're already ready and waiting to screw up your astrology. But even getting that far isn't enough. But if you don't do this, this was the, because Ali herself says, because you know me, I like to go where there's something missing. Keep looking, keep pushing. When an idea pops into your head, they put this in me. They tell me to do this, and I do it, okay? Sometimes I come up with the idea myself because I'm a critical thinker, and they're relying on that. But they don't leave me to risk failure. They're like, come follow us. They know my primary thing is I'm good at listening and following.